Hi, Ghost Recap here. Today, I'm going to explain an action science fiction film called Young Ones. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. At the beginning of the movie, we see a man named Ernest, who lives in a townhouse with his son Jerome and daughter Mary. He has a lot of land. Years ago, it used to be home to several farmers who grew wheat and other grains on it. But now it has become barren due to a water shortage. That's why everyone has left this area, but Ernest still lives on his land. He believed that if he gets water, this land can be green again. Ernest had a mule that he used to transport supplies to the people who extracted water from the depths of the earth. In return, Ernest used to get water, and the people who extracted water from the ground used to work for the government. Ernest asks the waterman for water for farming, but no one can give that much water, and even if he gets water, he will have to pay a lot of money in return, which he does not have. On their way back, their mule falls down and breaks its leg. Ernest reluctantly shoots the animal dead. The two come back home to Jerome's sister Mary, who serves them bagged food. Because of water scarcity, we see Mary cleansing the dishes with soil. The following day, Jerome and Ernest visit Sam Lever's auction house to get something to replace the mule who died. There, a robotic carrier machine called Simulate Shadow, Sim, catches their eyes. Ernest wins the auction against a man named Flem Lever, who also happens to be Sam's son. The two then go to meet Jerome's sick mother, Catherine Holm. She lives in a nearby hospital, where she can walk while wired to a special frame. Since the frame is too expensive, they cannot bring her home. Jerome spends his time with his mother that day. Ernest and Catherine kiss goodbye and separate. While returning, the two encounter a couple with a small child, he asking for water. The father Robbie wants to sell the baby, because they cannot care for him, but Ernest advises against doing so, and tells him that he will help them in the water. At this time, water had become very expensive, and now that it was available at the gas station like gasoline, Ernest used his money to buy water for the couple. One day Flame comes to Ernest, and he asks Ernest to borrow his robot. He says that I need it, and I will return it after finishing my work. But Ernest didn't trust him, so he refused to give him the robot and said that I couldn't give it to him without your father's permission. After hearing this, Flem got angry and left. Ernest's well was now dry, and now he was digging it deeper in the hope that he would get water and he could do farming. When both of them were going to their house, they saw a flame coming in front of them, and both of them understood that it was coming after meeting Mary. Actually, Mary was having an affair with Flame, and she used to go to meet him at night. Ernest stopped her many times, and even today, when he comes home, he tries to make Mary understand that Flame is not a good boy, but Mary loved Flame very much, which is why she doesn't listen to Ernest. Then angry Ernest locks Mary in the house. One morning, Ernest sees that his robot has been stolen by someone. Ernest immediately suspects Flame, because he had come to ask for the robot a few days ago. He immediately goes to Flame's house, but finds out from Sam that he has left with the truck that morning for the mountains. Ernest then goes looking for him among the watermen, but they knock him unconscious. When he regains consciousness, it is already night. The watermen accuse him of stealing their supplies. Ernest insists that he didn't steal them, but their leader, Caleb, attacks him. They fight for a while, but Ernest manages to get his hands on his rifle and run away from there. Now he starts looking for Flame again, and he finds him. First, Flame steals Ernest's robot, and then Waterman's water. Due to the darkness, Waterman could not recognize the Flame and thought it was Ernest. Now Ernest points the rifle at him, holds him hostage, and then ties him to the machine. He wants to take Flem back to the Waterman to prove his innocence. On their way, Flem makes comments about Mary, which anger Ernest. After walking for a while, both of them get thirsty. Flem persuades Ernest to use the water from the Waterman's supply. The two sit down to drink water and chat. Flem then tries to convince Ernest to let him go so they can share the money, but Ernest is adamant about getting him caught. Ernest is weak and limp, he clearly cannot walk another mile to the Waterman. Flem knows this, so he strikes Ernest with a stone, making him hit his head on a cliff. His head starts to bleed uncontrollably, and he is knocked unconscious. Ernest wakes up to find him tied instead of Flem. Flem pours water into Ernest's mouth as he screams. Later, we see Flem arrive at Ernest's house on his motorcycle to take Mary. She happily runs out to him. Ernest still hasn't been home, so Jerome goes out to look for him. He finds the machine alone on the way. When he reaches the Waterman, they inform him of Ernest's death. Everyone assumes that it was caused by the machine. In the following scene, we see everyone mourning Ernest's death at his funeral. Later, Catherine and the kids cry in her hospital bed. When they come out, Flem picks them up in his truck. After Ernest's death, Flem has now become the family member. He calms Jerome down as he hits Sim for killing his father. Later, he tells him that Mary is pregnant with his child and that he loves her. Jerome accepts their relationship. Later that day, Flem goes to the Waterman, and talks to them about sending water to Ernest's land. Caleb laughs at his idea, but gets defensive when Flem blames him for Ernest's death. Flem also shows him a knife, with Caleb's name that was found with Ernest's body. Scared to be accused, Caleb agrees to divert water to their field. Everyone is happy when the land gets its first sprinkle of water. Flem works day and night to grow wheat on the land. A few months later, they were fully grown. Flem gets married to Mary, and he currently lives at Ernest's home with Jerome and Mary. One day, his father, Sam, with some men from the bank, approaches their house, threatening to take the land because of Ernest's debt. The debt is too much for Flem to pay, so he takes the machine with him and approaches his friend Robbie that night. He knows about Robbie's intention to sell his child, so he persuades Robbie to come with him, just to see how much a baby can be worth. However, when they reach there, Robbie realizes that Flem has secretly made a deal with the people to sell his baby. The people try to take the baby away, but Robbie resists and is shot dead by Flem. This causes a shootout between the dealers, and Flem runs away with the money. However, the machine, Sim, is shot and damaged. This activates the auto mode in the machine, which causes it to return to its manufacturer, Calvin Hoyman. The following day, Flem pays the bank with the money he sold the child with. Jerome assumes that the money came from selling Sim, so no one suspects anything. In the following scene, we see Sim limping its way back to Calvin, who lives across the border. Calvin calls the number inscribed on Sim and reaches Holmes' residence. He talks to Jerome about the machine coming back to him, which shocks Jerome because Flem had told him he sold it to Robbie. Jerome asks Flem if Robbie sold Sim's parts and they somehow went to the owner, but Flem gets annoyed at him for the question and dismisses it. Then he tells them he is going to meet his mother that evening, but instead he plans to cross the border to meet Calvin, the manufacturer of Sim. Later, he reaches the border, but the guard stops him because he is too young to cross it. A girl named Anna calls him over and tells him she knows a way he can go to the other side. In exchange for money, she puts him in a vehicle with chickens and sends him over. They meet again on the other side and separate. Jerome then goes to meet Calvin. There, Calvin shows him all the functions of the machine. He also shows that the machine's eyes are cameras that were made to capture the slope for reforestation. The camera has captured all that the machine has seen. Jerome plays the recordings and remembers his time with Ernest. As he goes through it, he is horrified to see that Flem was the one who killed Ernest. That day, after Ernest had gained consciousness, Flem tied him to the machine and set its destination for the waterman. The machine had dragged an injured but alive Ernest to his death. By the end of the video, tears roll down Jerome's face. In the evening, he returns home but doesn't confront Flem about anything. One day, Flem and Jerome are hunting deer, after which Jerome keeps the rifle with him, hiding it under his bed for the future. At breakfast, Jerome tells Flem about Robbie calling him. Flem is surprised and accuses Jerome of lying because he knows Robbie is already dead. Later, Flem receives a letter, written by Jerome as Robbie. The letter asks Flem to meet Robbie at the same place where he killed Ernest. He is confused by this, but he decides to find out whether Robbie is still alive. Later at night, Flem tells a pregnant Mary that he has to go out to sell something. Mary wishes him luck and asks him to come back soon. When Flem reaches the place, he calls for Robbie. As he walks, he falls into a pit and breaks his legs. He lies there, calling for help, when Jerome appears in front of him. Seeing him there, Flem takes a sigh of relief and asks him for help. However, Jerome stands there with a rock in his hand. Flem realizes that he knows everything that happened and apologizes to him, claiming it was just an accident. He begs him to spare his life for Mary and their child, but Jerome doesn't listen. He points the rifle at Flem and shoots him dead. It has been 2 days since the event. Mary is worried about her husband, but Jerome asks her to wait a little longer. He has decided to keep Mary in the dark about both Ernest's and Flem's deaths. Mary suggests they bring their mother home because they now have the money to afford the ringing system she lives in. The movie ends as Jerome erases all the video memory from Sim. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe Ghost Recaps for more videos like this, hit the bell icon, and leave a like to help the channel out.